The reason that this pay package is valuable to minority shareholders, who are the ones that she's supposed to be representing the interest of, is because of the risk that Elon Musk took. If he didn't deliver huge returns for us as minority shareholders, then he would get nothing, and he only gets paid if he's able to do that. And I'm sorry, like, I just don't personally believe that you could find more than a handful of other people in the entire rest of the world who would have been willing to accept that pay package that Elon Musk accepted in 2018, knowing what Elon Musk knew. Now, some people say, well, of course he was incentivized to grow the company because he already owned 20% of the company. But you can't take the percentage of the company that he already owned into account in the what am I going to get paid in the future? Like, he didn't have to do anything. He could have resigned in 2018. Today's a big day. So yeah, excited about this one.
So yesterday it was announced that Tesla's bid to get the $56 billion pay package reinstated was denied by Judge McCormick. And Tesla replied, saying a Delaware judge just overruled a supermajority of shareholders who own Tesla and who voted twice to pay Elon what he's worth. The court's decision is wrong, and we're going to appeal. So right off the bat, they just replied immediately, we're going to appeal this. This ruling, if not overturned, means that judges and plaintiff lawyers run Delaware companies rather than rightful owners, the shareholders. Elon replied saying shareholders should control company votes, not judges.
Yeah, Elon's approach to this case and then this account, the official Tesla account, really are looking at the whole thing from the high level of first principles. You know, should the shareholders actually get a say in what they can and cannot do? And I think at a high level, that's true. Problem for Judge McCormick is that she's a judge in Delaware, and there's lots and lots of Delaware case law that addresses these questions and kind of tie her hands in how these votes take place, the information that shareholders are provided in advance. And there's a lot of legal minutia and procedural minutia that has to be navigated correctly. And I think that one of the things that a lot of people in the Tesla community are discounting is the fact that there really are strong grounds that Judge McCormick has for some of her objections. Ultimately, I think that her ruling is unfair, to Elon's point, and that especially at the very highest level, the idea that we knew what we were getting into as shareholders when we voted for this pay package, and we should be allowed to abide by this pay package. I definitely agree with that. There's, of course, a lot of nuance that goes into that. And so that's what we'll get into a little bit more as we move forward. But like the high level summary is that this pay package was unprecedented for a public company CEO, especially at the size that Tesla was and is today. And because it is so unprecedented to structure a compensation package the way that this compensation package was structured in the first place, it really opens up these opportunities for it to be challenged in court. That's why we saw the challenge in the first place. And that's why the challenge has been upheld by Judge McCormick. The second vote that we just held this year that allowed shareholders to reaffirm this pay package, I think that, you know, the thing that we failed to appreciate is that that really is immaterial to the verdict that Judge McCormick had initially ruled. And because it took place after she had given her verdict, she didn't have a whole lot of grounds to overturn the ruling that she had made. But because she allowed that evidence to be presented during the trial, but after the verdict, I think that that does strengthen Tesla's case for the appeal. And so I don't know that there really was a possibility for her to change her ruling after she had already given her verdict. So, like, to me, it's not at all surprising that we hear today that she's still upholding the ruling that she gave before. But I think that this does strengthen the case that Tesla has going into the appeal. I hope that Tesla will win that appeal. I think it's definitely possible, maybe even likely. And I am excited about that because this is something that should be probably decided at a higher level court than the lowest level court in Delaware.
Agreed with you. Most of us, the majority of people, felt that this particular ruling that happened yesterday was going to happen the way it is anyways. Like you say, maybe the appeal, maybe the Supreme, maybe not, but there's other options available for Tesla. So let's see what the other Tesla employees have, come around, replying to this, including us shareholders standing up and supporting Tesla. Ashok Kalaswamy, Vice President of Autonomy, said, "Insane. It's just so obviously unfair that I can only explain this as corruption." You got Jeremy Goldman. The majority of the owners of the company have made their desires known, and it's crazy that a single judge can basically say, haha, no, I don't really care what you want. I'll also pay a few $100 million for the privilege of being ignored. So now let's talk about the one thing that the chancellor did do was reduce the lawyers' fees from $56 billion to now to $345 million. So the traditional amount, somebody would get a ridiculously $5.6 billion, 10%, but she did bring it down. Some people are asking, hey, this is okay. Let's just go ahead and pay this, move on. Let's not bother with appeal. But no, that's not obviously what Tesla's going to do. That's not what Elon's going to do. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would just be giving in to the shakedown. And I think that there is new precedent that needs to be set with this case, and we need to pursue the appeal to the very end, all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary, even if we win the next appeal, I think that next appeal would then be appealed to the Supreme Court either way. Like, I'm pretty sure this case is going all the way to the Supreme Court, regardless of what the ruling at the Delaware Court of Appeals ends up being. So one area where, like I said, that I'm not very surprised that Judge McCormick couldn't overturn her ruling based on the things that happened after she'd already given her verdict. On the flip side, I am a little bit surprised that she didn't try to change her ruling, this may just be my ignorance about the law as someone who's definitely not a lawyer, but I can't imagine that there's not an incredible amount of political pressure being put on the court of Delaware to fix this, because it has created such a stink nationally and potentially even internationally with regards to the fitness of Delaware as a court that C Corps commonly want to end up incorporating in. So a huge source of revenue for the state of Delaware is franchise tax at the corporate level, and it has been for many, many years standard practice when you set up a C Corp to set up a Delaware incorporated C Corp, because the court of Delaware was viewed as a predictable court that had good rules, good fairness for companies, and that now is in question. Now, whether it's fair to question that for Delaware, I think there's some room for debate in both directions here. I prefer that Tesla, I'm happy that Tesla moved to Texas. I'm happy that we can get away from an activist judge here. But that said, regardless of the reality of the situation, the perception of the situation is that Delaware is a bad place to incorporate now. And because of that, not only are companies leaving, but new companies are ceasing to incorporate there. And that has huge negative impacts for the economy of Delaware over time. And I would expect that pressure alone would cause a lot of pressure on Judge McCormick to do something about this. Now, maybe they're saying, okay, we don't really have room in this case, and maybe that does make it more likely that the appeal will actually go in Tesla's favor. But like I said, even if the appeal goes in Tesla's favor, it probably still will go onto the Supreme Court.
Okay, let's. You wanted to show this. Can you explain why we wanted to see this part of the brief?
Yeah. So here's my understanding of this case. Like I said, as a non-lawyer, is that it really boils down to a situation here. You can take this down for a second, and I'll set up the context before I read what's here. But is that Judge McCormick's ruling? So first of all, there's a couple of important things to know. One of the things is that because Elon Musk is a controlling shareholder of Tesla, she was able to, under the fairness doctrine, say that the burden of proof for this deal actually lies on the defendants. So Elon Musk and Tesla had to prove that this deal was fair to shareholders, because they're really in a position of power relative to the minority shareholders. And so it's not on Richard Tornetta to prove that this case was unfair. It was on Elon Musk to prove that the thing was fair. And so in evaluating whether or not it's fair, she basically cites a whole number of things where the board did not approach this negotiation the way that these compensation package negotiations are normally approached in public companies. And if you read through the decision, it's pretty clear that no, Tesla did not approach this negotiation that way. That what she was expecting and what is normal common practice is that these negotiations are really adversarial, and that's what she wanted to see. That it's, and by adversarial, you could think of that as a zero sum, like anything that Elon Musk gets comes at the expense of shareholders, and anything that the shareholders get come at the expense of Elon Musk and his compensation. And in that zero sum frame, then you need more arm's length dealings. It needs to be more, there needs to be more conflict. You know, this is one of the things that she brings up specifically. And then she cites where that's just not how the board members approached the deal, that they were looking at how can we make this a win-win for Elon Musk and for shareholders. And because there wasn't that normal conflict, and because they weren't approaching it as a zero-sum negotiation, but as a positive-sum negotiation, then it fails. It's hard to prove that the whole deal is fair when the entire existing set of case law that is used to prove if something is fair is based on these zero-sum negotiations. And we're just not doing that here. So then after all of that, we get into this paragraph, and here I'll read it and we'll go. So it says that focusing on the 6.4% figure alone, defendant's financial expert testified that something like 6 to 10% equity for a new CEO would be totally normal in VC and private equity-backed companies. And this is one of the issues that she takes with this deal, is that it's structured like a VC deal and not like a public company deal. So Gracias testified that an equity stake of around 6% for a CEO would be considered on the low end, and defendants described this grant as riskier than VC compensation because it was 100% risk-free for Tesla and its stockholders. And the reason that we're saying it's 100% risk-free for Tesla and its stockholders is because it's 100% performance-based, that if Elon Musk did not deliver on those huge growth milestones that he set out in that pay package, which were astronomical, that Tesla shareholders wouldn't have to pay him a single dime. But Musk would get nothing if we hadn't doubled the market cap. So that's the risk-free part. Referring to his portfolio companies, Gracias put it bluntly, I don't have a CEO that would sign up for that. And then we transition into Judge McCormick's opinion. She says, Gracias's testimony, however, is simply not credible. Based on Tesla's April 25th, 2022 market cap of just over $900 billion, 6% of Tesla would be worth $54 billion, just under the maximum value disclosed in the proxy. Any number of CEOs would sign up for that, and many VC startups offer CEOs the prospect of great riches or nothing at all. So this particular paragraph here, I just find absolutely egregiously stupid. And the reason for that is that, first of all, she's saying that I don't like that we're structuring this deal as a VC deal. And then she ends it with saying,
I was going to say that
lots of VC deals are structured this way. It's like, well, you can't have it both ways. And then, but the real core of the problem here is that she's saying, well, if a CEO knew that they were going to make $55 billion, which is not that he at many points, she picked that one arbitrary point in 2022 as the point to look at, and the value of his stock has been, fluctuating up and down all throughout this time. But more than the value fluctuating up and down, the thing is that she's assuming no risk. She's saying that if a CEO knew that they were going to make $55 billion or $54 billion, we'll just use her number,
okay,
that of course that they would accept it. But that assumes that they're taking no risk.
Yeah.
The reason that this pay package is valuable to minority shareholders, who are the ones that she's supposed to be representing the interest of, is because of the risk that Elon Musk took. That if he didn't deliver huge returns for us as minority shareholders, then he would get nothing, and he only gets paid if he's able to do that. And I'm sorry, I just don't personally believe that you could find more than a handful of other people in the entire rest of the world who would have been willing to accept that pay package that Elon Musk accepted in 2018, knowing all what Elon Musk knew. Now, some people say, well, of course he was incentivized to grow the company because he already owned 20% of the company. But you can't take the percentage of the company that he already owned into account in the what am I going to get paid in the future? He didn't have to do anything. He could have resigned in 2018. Mm-hmm. So we're negotiating over what is he barely supposed to be compensated for the work that he did from 2018 onwards. And he delivered massive result in that period from 2018 onward, and he deserves to be paid.